Hey everyone, this is Mason Hutchison, and you're listening to HerbRally, your daily herbal podcast. We come out with new episodes about 5 days a week, so be sure to tune in often. Our goal for the show is to help you along your herbalist journey no matter what stage you're at. Today I'm joined by Logan Keister on yet another edition of the Herbalist Hour. Logan's a good friend. He's from Oregon as well, and unfortunately we weren't able to do this interview live, but that's okay. Zoom is a nice option as well. It was nice to get to know Logan a little bit better about his herbal origin story, some of his mentors. We also go over quite a bit about medicinal mushrooms and mycology and whatnot. We also delve into a little bit about entheogens, Richo, Cech, one of his herbal mentors, what it's like to give an herb walk to 65 people, and a whole lot more. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. And also, before we get into the show, I want to let you know about our YouTube channel. We come out with new herbalism videos anywhere from 1 to 3 to 5 times per week. It's been a few days since we released one, but a lot of them lately have been the Herbalist Hour interviews. You could actually watch these on YouTube, which is fun because then you could see our faces and also leave comments. It's kind of hard to leave a comment in a podcast audio only format. So if you ever want to leave comments on these episodes, you could go check out our YouTube channel. Simply search HerbRally and YouTube, should pop right up. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun to build the YouTube channel over the past couple years, and we just want to keep growing and offering more and more free herbal education. So please head to our YouTube channel and give us a subscribe. Also, last but not least, I want to shout out Torin Frost. Torin wrote the raps and created the beat to the new Herbalist Hour theme song. You can learn more about Torin Frost on his Instagram page. Just simply search @Torin Frost. Also want to say he's on SoundCloud and Spotify as well. And that's Torin Frost, Torin Frost. So shout out and thanks to Torin for the new Herbalist Hour song. And that's going to do it for me today. And I'll talk to you very, very soon. Take care.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
All right, well, welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm joined by my good friend, herbalist and mycologist, Logan Keister. Welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to be here.
Nice to have you. And, a lot of times I'll start these shows with trying to get the herbal origin story, but we're going to save that for a little bit later. For now, I want to know, how was work today?
Oh, work was good. I'll be honest, I just did a plant walk up in Eugene. It was really cool. It was actually for the elementary school, and I went to a small rural elementary school, but I randomly got asked to do a plant walk for them. So after my long weekend, I was a little tired coming into work today, but we got some really beautiful plants in the ground, and just beautiful out on the property right now. Spring is like slowly fading into summer, and just like the vibrance and abundance is just really rich right now.
Yeah, and just for the audience reference, Logan works at a place called Strictly Medicinals, which is a organic herb seed company located in Southern Oregon. So yeah, I'm guessing you're just kind of you're working with the plants all day, every day, pretty much, huh?
Yeah, pretty much every day, all day. I'm just always out there, just really with my hands in the dirt, working with the plants, whether it's cultivating, making medicine. I kind of move all around the business wherever I'm needed, but it's just really about cultivating that diversity and just really bringing about just good abundance of medicinal plants to share with the world.
Love it. So I've been meaning to ask you, you also led a plant walk at the recent free herbalism project in Eugene, and I'm just kind of curious, what was that experience like? And Logan, you probably know this, but I organized, I want to say, the first 13 or 14 free herbalism projects when I worked at Mountain Rose Herbs, and now I've missed the past couple, and I'm starting to be like, I'm feeling out of the loop. But what was your experience like at that event?
Oh, it was wonderful. Just amazing. It was a very well attended plant walk. It felt like around 60 to 70 people on that first walk, and the second one was a little more tame, but it was people were just really excited, really stoked, and I was just super stoked to see Christopher Hobbs speak, because he's been someone who teaches a lot about medicinal mushrooms. His book, Medicinal Mushrooms: The Essential Guide, has been a really big inspiration for me and how I like to talk about medicinal mushrooms and just the way he presents his information. So it's really cool getting to see an author that you've read their book so much, see when they have to condense their entire speech into 1 hour, what spots they really hone on. And, he really honed on, especially seeing how much he really liked turkey tail. He really promoted that one strong. And also getting to see my good friend and workmate Richo Cech, who owns Strictly Medicinal Seeds. He's like family to me, and it was just really amazing to see him up there speaking and presenting. And the Free Herbalism Project holds a special spot in my heart because the very first herb class I went to was actually at a Free Herbalism Project. It was when I was working at Mountain Rose Herbs, and the headliner was Jim McDonald teaching a class on aphrodisiacs, the energetic aphrodisiacs, and it totally blew my mind. I was like, okay, this is what herb school's about. And Mountain Rose Herbs still has it on their podcast. They have a recording of that class. I highly recommend people listen to it. But no, it doesn't beat that experience of being in there in the room and they're passing around different aphrodisiacs for us to try out. It was excellent. So I just have a special place in my heart for the Free Herbalism Project and great stuff that Mountain Rose puts out there.
I had no idea that was like your first herb class, and I'll second that. That was an amazing class. And yeah, like you said, it is available on the Herbal Radio podcast presented by Mountain Rose Herbs. I remember that's actually the event where the Mountain Rose Herbs love tea was born. I want to say that we produced a special batch just for that event, and then later they decided to carry it. And fun fact, one day we sent Jim McDonald a custom tea box of the love tea, and it said "Love Jim Tea."
That's pretty sweet.
So you led a plant walk with 60 to 70 people. Have you ever led a plant walk of that size before?
No, I think that was probably the biggest one I've done. It was kind of, they said the limit was 25, but they're like, if more people come on, can you handle it? I'm like, yeah. I got a good loud booming voice. Like, it's not hard for me to project. So it was very great. And there was it was at Mount Pisgah. So there's a very wide area, and I could talk a lot about just the whole ecology out there with the whole oak savanna, and just like go out there and just appreciate the large oak trees. Doesn't involve everyone have to get really close to a tiny plant. So it's really nice just talking about fire ecology and land stewardship and kind of some of those indigenous land tending practices that they still promote out there.
It's pretty neat to think that might be someone at that event's first herb class. And so you're just kind of helping continue the lineage of, free herbal education and everything. And that's really neat. So did you have any particular highlights that you took away from Christopher Hobbs' talk?
It was really cool getting to see him just make his whole mushroom slurry extract into his powderized form in person, just seeing that demonstrated. I've tried it before, but it was really nice seeing him work with pressure. But I really thought, for me, what really stood out was the fact that he honed on turkey tail so much as being his favorite mushroom, and just felt this is the most studied one. You have to take any medicinal mushroom, work with turkey tail. It's so common. It's got loads of research behind it. It's so easy to take. And so that to me really stood out because he could have talked about any mushrooms. He had a big, beautiful agaricon. Oh, actually, that was probably the highlight right there. Is he gifted me a very large, beautiful agaricon mushroom because he said anyone who's going to make medicine with it, I'll gift it to them. And I'm like, well, I make mushroom medicines, and so he gifted me this beautiful agaricon. So really grateful to him for giving me that. I'm gonna stake up to my word, make some really good medicine from it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't really consume any sort of turkey tail. I'm sure I have in my lifetime, but do you think now, after hearing so much about the benefits of turkey tail, that you're going to start incorporating that into your own self-care?
Well, I've been working with turkey tail as one of the earliest mushrooms I started working with. So a little bit about my past history is I used to work in high school as a commercial forager. So when my friends' dads, he'd take us out and we'd go forage for wild mushrooms, and he always talked about turkey tail. He's like, oh, out here in the country, we call this energy gum right here. You just pop stuff in your mouth, chew it, suck out the little juices from it. And when you're done, you spit it out. So I've been chewing on turkey tails for quite a while. And sometimes won't even spit them out, and I'll get all the good stuff out of there. These days I like making teas and making the mushroom powders, but man, every time I'm walking through the woods, if I see a nice, fresh looking turkey tail and my palate's feeling a little parched, I'm going to pop that baby in my mouth and chew it up real good.
I love it. Well, this is a little foreshadowing for later on. We're going to talk about mushrooms, but I also want to talk to you about the slimy flavor experience as well. But before we get there, that's a nice segue to talk about your early on. What was Logan like as a child? And then how did that transition into you taking herb school? And then, from there, we could get to that later, but I'm really curious how you went from, say, herb student to then just teaching classes and making medicine. But yeah, first let's get to know a younger Logan. What were you like as a child?
Oh man, I was very blessed to be raised out in rural Oregon. I grew up in the Willamette Valley in a small town called Notai. It's about half an hour outside of Eugene. If anyone's familiar with Oregon Country Fair, I'm about 10 minutes down the road from the fairgrounds. But, I grew up on a forested property. My parents had a very big, large garden. So we grew a lot of our own food. And they were also really into foraging for mushrooms. And we'd always pick like blackberries, thimbleberries, salmon berries during the summertime. So there was always that kind of early on introduction to just being outside and being with plants. My parents were very outdoorsy and take us camping and backpacking. And, I'll be honest, I was a real high energy kid. I was just like bouncing off the walls. It was like hard to get me to sit still. I was always like a really good student in school, but, sometimes it was like staying in the classroom too long. I'd get a little disruptive. So I was always like the kid who got good grades, but every once in a while, it's like, Logan can't sit still. We got to send him to the office. So, now that I'm older, it's like, it's been nice. I've been able to take in that restless energy into like just making my career of always being outside and working with plants. So I think that's really what pushed me in that direction a lot. And yeah, like I was mentioning before, I kind of had that early on experience in my childhood. My father was really actually he still is a really good mushroom forager, and not just like the guy who just goes for, the chanterelles and the hedgehogs and the more common mushrooms, but he actually would read his guidebooks and really teach himself. And we would go for some less usual species, less of the choice ones. And yeah, I just feel me and my father are really similar in that way. And yeah, it's just been kind of continuing on from there. I guess my first job in high school, like I mentioned, I was doing commercial foraging and wildcrafting with Bob Cherry, my friend Prescott. That was his father. And, he was just a real good woodsman. He had a real high energy. He would always be bragging, he could like skip a stone further than you. He could shoot the pool better than you. He could always brag. He's like, one time I went to the doctor and the nurse was like, man, you got the body of a track star. And he's like, yeah, it's because I'm running up and down those hills. You get out of the woods with him and like Bob would just take off. And you were just like trying to keep up with him because, he's the master and you're the one learning from him. But lots of really cool skills he would teach you. When we go out picking for morels, for instance, he would stop us and he was like, all right, stand right here. And there are 5 morels about 10 feet in front of you. See how long it takes you to spot them. And you just stand there. And in the beginning, sometimes you'd stand there for like 5-10 minutes before you'd even see one of them. But over time, you'd start to see the difference between a morel and a pine cone and all the little forest stuff that looks similar to it. So I think that early on, it kind of came from the family kind of experience of foraging to like, okay, let's what does it mean to like, really seek out abundance and find those big patches, and like seeing also what the herbal market, what people were interested in. It kind of was eye-opening to me, that people were paying this, money to get these harvested goods from the forest, and it's things I just grew up harvesting. Yeah, so really grateful for Bob and that whole experience. And then, graduated high school, was kind of looking around for some work. My mom, I guess she knew someone over at Mountain Rose and recommended me over there. So I got a job as an herb cleaner. It was the only part-time job they had. So, I'd get up early in the morning and by around noon, I'd be done. But I'd spend all day there just dumping hundreds of pounds of chamomile, calendula, nettles, ginseng, like whatever they needed sorted. I just be there at the table sifting through all the herbs and just, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of valuable medicinal herbs just pass through these hands.
Wow.
It was kind of eye-opening to me because, go from like, the really, the wildcrafter, we're kind of like the commercial foragers are really the kind of the bottom rung in the herbal industry. It's real tough being out there. Some days, I'd say if, Bob wasn't a commercial forager, he'd probably be a gambler. Because it definitely it has that vibe to it. They'll be like, oh man, that one day you like get out there early, get that big patch of matsutakis, and they're paying like $30 a pound, and you get there early and get that early fruiting, and then you feel like you're on top of the world. But then like a week later, like, oh, now all the matsutakis are in and the price just dropped down to like, something minuscule, like less than $1 a pound or something like that. It could get really, so you're either making like more than you'd ever make at any other kind of job, or you'd be making minimum wage or a little bit under that. So it was it's tough work. It's really you got to be out there a long time. So
yeah.
But it was cool getting on to move on and see that kind of like that middle ground where like, okay, now I'm at this large, massive warehouse and there's just thousands of pounds of herbs from all over the world just being shipped there and going in and out and moving to all these different places and, seeing the value of some of these herbs. And, I was actually a little bit skeptical about herbalism at that point. I was a little bit like, oh, it's something that, uppity, like class liberals with lots of money just spend money on because, they think it does something. But, when you're starting to see like, oh, no, people are paying real money and this is like a worldwide thing. And Mountain Rose, they're really nice. They when they get refunds or back orders, they'll just put them out for free for the employees to take. They just have this big table full of herbs that would always be cycling through different things. So me being curious and all, I'd go out there, look at the table like, oh, okay, let's see. Shatavari, herb of 1,000 husbands. That sounds interesting. Maybe I'll get that to my girlfriend. Ooh, rhodiola. Ooh, Eulethro. It says it boosts bicep muscle growth by like 10%. And it's like good for like the Russian cosmonauts before they launched them up into space. So I get into those really adaptogenic herbs. I was really into working out. So I just like drink a bunch of Eulethro, rhodiola, tribulus, and just go lift weights and go trail running barefoot for hours. And, I was like, okay, these herbs really do something. I really, enjoyed that. And being totally honest, big thing that got me into herbalism was entheogens for sure. I think even at a very early age, my dad got me reading Carlos Castaneda and just like really became very interested in the kind of, more shamanic practices and more kind of the magical and sorcery practices that can come with these more mind altering species of plants. And, just spending countless hours just perusing the web, just trying to understand all the different ways that plants could influence consciousness, from all the very stimulating plants, the hallucinogens, deliriants. And, I think that was just so amazing. I felt like, wow, these plants can really offer any way to change one's consciousness, how they see fit. But then also, you get into that long enough, and I start working on Mountain Rose. I'm like, oh, whoa, this actually transfers over to the body as well. And, you start working with these ones that are giving you more energy and more, make you want to go out there more. And you're feeling like a lot of vitality moving through. And you start to realize like, oh, okay, there's a lot of power to these plants. I was kind of like, not going to get stuck in the Terrace and McKenna, like, things are all just like focused just on the hallucinogenic ones, but I realized like, whoa, you can have a whole system of medicine that's really, really effective. Yeah, so I worked at Mountain Rose for a while, and they were hosting the free herbalism project. I was there for almost 3 years, and they were like, oh, at the time, I would just go on Google, and I'm like, oh, what's this herb for? And I'd Google it. Oh, what's this herb for? And I'd just learn that way. And I thought like, I think maybe that'll be fine for me learning herbs. But I keep hearing about this Columbine school.
Yeah.
Yep. And I just keep meeting random students, and I was kind of jealous of them because, they'd be from other parts of the country and they had better botany and plant knowledge than I did. And, being someone who was raised out in the woods and had been a commercial forager and stuff, it was kind of like hurting my ego a little bit that I didn't know all the plants as well. And also just every time I met a Columbine student, like it came to the point where I remember one time I was sitting in the hot springs and there's this, just beautiful woman there. And she was just like talking and just had this like deep knowledge of plants. I'm like, do you go to Columbine? She's like, yeah, how'd you know? I'm like, you just have the vibe of like a Columbine student, just like that knowledge and just that confidence with the wild plants of the Pacific Northwest. So, but I was still a little skeptical. I'm like, I could teach myself this, but then I saw Jim McDonald.
Yeah,
and I saw what an herb teacher really was about because when you saw that class, you think like, oh, it's a class on aphrodisiacs. So it's going to be like herbs that make you feel like getting frisky. But he just broke it down so much where he was just like, hey, what if someone's lacking moisture in certain places? Maybe even a moistening demulcent could actually be considered an aphrodisiac. What if someone is like anxious and they're having trouble like stepping into their body? Maybe a calming nervine relaxant can be it. Maybe someone just like has a stomach ache or something and they can't get in the mood because they have other health issues going on. And also just got into the dynamic of a romantic relationship. And when it comes to one partner desiring sex more than another, and how that creates a certain power dynamic in a relationship, it was just absolutely does, like, it's the definition of being holistic. It just really looked at all perspectives, and I was just like, oh, this is what teachers are for, what real teachers are for. And funny enough, I go interview at the Columbine school, and Howie just looks like almost like another version of Jim. They had the both long hair and the kind of garb, and they were just really close friends too. They always speak really highly of one another, and just both very silly too. So yeah, when I interviewed at Columbine's, it just felt really right for me. And yeah, just because for me, it was my interest in going into herbalism wasn't to be like, oh, I want to be this great healer, I want to help all these people. It was just like, no, I just love outside. I just like being out in nature and just having knowledge of what's around me and the ecology, and just feeling a deeper connection to place. And yeah, so going to Columbine School, where the main focus really is on that field botany, like really we're taking our students out there to go find the wild plants that are growing around us and using those as medicine, learning about the ecology and the interactions of wildlife between the plants. So that was the kind of herbal education I was seeking out, and it was what I found. And it just happened to be in the town I was born and raised in, just in Eugene. So it was, yeah, just a match made in heaven, I guess.
Yeah, I've been praising my new town of Appleton, Wisconsin nonstop. And I think I'm starting to irritate my family with how enthusiastic I am. And I feel incredibly grateful, though, to also have been raised in Eugene, Oregon. And it's just a lot of the stuff seems like fate. I worked at Mountain Reserves too. I took Columbines, and it really, changed who I am. And Amanda was asking me the other day if I was raised in, say Wisconsin or something like that, do I think I would turn into the same person? And I know, and it's tough to think about. I'm very curious as well, but I like to think that there's herbalists and herbal companies and everywhere. So I feel like I still would have found my path. Thank you for sharing your story. That was so neat to hear in such a chronological order. I know I've heard bits and pieces of it here and there, but you really went into it there, and I really appreciate that. It's you've really had quite the herbal experience through, like, say, your family, and then through school and work and all that. You've seen all these perspectives. I really appreciate that you shared that you were skeptical at first too, and then it kind of grew on you. I'm curious now, like, say, you went on from Columbines and now you're teaching quite a bit. I'm curious how you went from I guess getting the courage to do it, but how did you go from herb student to now teaching herbalism on a regular basis?
Well, it's like definitely have had a lot of great teachers along the way. I mean, I've mentioned Howie a bunch, but we also had a Stephen Yeager and Heron Bray, and just they were just such incredible teachers for me. And just, a lot of Heron, which he taught about a lot of the indigenous food tending. That's been something that's been really coming up a lot for me, and just thinking a lot more about restoration. But I also went to Oregon State University, and I got a degree in horticulture as well. So understanding those aspects of plant cultivation, just human interactions with plants. So I think it was just getting this blessings of all these teachers, and I was always like interested in teaching. Every time my teachers were in front of me, I was always paying attention to the way they taught, and what teachers did I like more than others, and what did I like more about them than others, and just kind of like almost not only like what the teacher's teaching me, but also how they're teaching, like, was also part of the lesson. So I kind of like just took a lot of, all the people I liked the most, I just really admired, and kind of took that aspect out, and, really into herbalism. Howie never sugarcoated it, or any of my other teachers. Like, you really just have to put yourself out there, and don't do it expecting for money. Some people reach out to me like, oh, I'm thinking about getting into herbalism as like another career path that might make me more money. I'm like, if you're getting into herbalism, don't do it for the money, because it's really, it's starting to pay off more and more the longer I do it, but it's definitely been a lot of just having to put myself out there, just being like, hey, I'm interested in teaching and putting my writing out there and just trying to, just put the word out. And just over time, you just kind of start leading more walks and more classes. And people are like, oh, I like that walk. Hey, would you like to lead something out here? And so, like I said, I was teaching leading a plant walk for my elementary school the other day. And they're like, how'd you end up leading a plant walk for your old elementary school? And it was like super random. I got an email. Someone's like, hey, one of my friends was looking for someone to lead a plant walk for an elementary school. And I saw you at the Free Herbalism Project leading a plant walk. So I thought you might be good. And so I reached out to them and they're like, hey, we're with the Territorial Elementary School. And I actually saw you on a plant walk at Free Herbalism Project, but it was a different plant walk. So we would definitely love to have you. So it was just kind of like, people who'd seen me before at different events. I guess if it's, phrasing this as a question for like other people who may be listening, like, oh, how do I get my start in herbalism? And like, getting to teach. It's really just about reaching out to people. And, I can't turn down like having good education, good teachers and really paying attention to what a good presenter does. I think that would be kind of where I'd leave that.
Yeah, good advice. I like that you said that you pay attention to not just what they're teaching, say, about the herbs, but also their teaching style. I've actually kind of been doing that with like podcasts lately. I'm like, I've listened to podcasts for so long and I never really thought about the art of it or the art of asking a good question or actually trying to hone as a craft. Now I am, though. I'm like, I have a very sincere interest in it. So I'm trying to improve my game that way. And it sounds like that's essentially your advice too, or one of the pieces of advice you gave. So transitioning over to the segment I was talking to you about before we started the call. It's a new segment. It's called Giving Flowers. And this is where we're going to, show honor or compliment one of the people in our herbal journey and in life, how this person has helped influence and shaped you and, in your evolution. So the person I was hoping you could talk about today is Richo Cech.
Oh, yes. Yes. I love Richo, man. He's been working there nearly 3 years now, and he's just like family to me. And, you were mentioned earlier, like some of this herbalist journey just feels like fate. And, I'm a strong believer in fate. And for me, as someone who'd studied herbalism and botany for a couple years and was getting interested in horticulture and going to university to study horticulture, I was kind of looking out there, like who else is out there who's like growing medicinal herbs and like just like big diversity of medicinal herbs and has that deep knowledge. And every time I'd look on the internet, like I said, I was into psychoactive plants. I think a lot of it was looking online for like, where do I get seeds for some of the, like the daturas and the henbanes and the belladonnas and the African dream roots. And I would just keep coming on his website and just his writing would keep coming up and his blog posts would keep coming up. And I was just like, wow. And he's just right here in the state I'm from, the guy who's growing literally the most medicinal plants, native medicinal plants in the United States right now, who has the largest collection of all those, is right here in Oregon. And I knew like 3 years before I was going to work for him that I was going to work for him. And I actually applied 3 times and it wasn't until the 3rd time that I got accepted. But it was like, even though I didn't get accepted the first time, like I kept applying because I know I'm like, it's going to happen at the right time. And, even though I didn't get first accept time, I ended up working at Bastyr University, which was a really incredible experience, getting work in the botanical medicine department there and help out in their medicinal herb gardens and be in charge of their whole sacred seeds trail and the whole native plant conservatory they were trying to keep out there. So it was just like a lot of serendipity that led me to Richo, and he's just been just incredibly just one of the wisest people I know. He just holds a lot of wisdom and he's just really funny and silly. And, he's one of those people, it takes a while to get to know him. It takes a while for him to warm up to you. And, he doesn't teach herb school. So he's one of those teachers that's like kind of hard to access unless you get that really close relationship with him and stuff. So I feel really blessed that I was able to cultivate this relationship with him and get to work with him like every day and just share knowledge and just share love and friendship and just work in the soil together. He's just been an incredible teacher, mentor. I can't say more about him. I love the guy.
Oh yeah, I love Richo too. And Logan, I don't know if I ever told you the story before, but it's like one of my introductions to Richo when I was helping with the Rootstock Festival for Mountain Rose Herbs, like I don't even know, 13 years ago or something like that. I was helping Richo set up his booth at Rootstock, and he was trying to figure out how to hang a sign, and I was like, oh, we could, like nail this sign to the tree over here. And he just looks at me like deadpan, and he's like, we will not be hurting any of the trees this weekend.
The classic Richo deadpan. I know it too well.
Oh yeah. You were mentioning his sense of humor, and yeah, I gotta second that as well. Yeah, he's got a great sense of humor. So dear listener, if you want to learn more about Richo and his work, and again, Logan works there, I want to say it's strictlymedicinals.com. Strictly Medicinal Seeds. Yeah. Thank you. strictlymedicinalseeds.com. And we'll leave a link to that in the show notes. I was going to maybe chat about this a little bit later on, but you've mentioned it a couple times now, and that is entheogen. And I know you're going to be teaching a class at the Good Medicine Confluence on herbs to help with, say, an entheogenic experience. Now, I know you want to save the juicy bits for the actual the conference, but I'm wondering if you're able or willing or even allowed to maybe give any sort of like insight as to what the class may be about, or a particular plant that you might be talking about in the class.
I'd love to give a little sneak peek of that class. And also, if anyone is interested, I still have a few discounted tickets left to the Good Medicine Confluence coming up in Gunnison, Colorado in July, towards the end of July. So reach out to me at notypebotanica.com. I have a few tickets left at a discount. But
I saw that on your Instagram account, and I was going to ask you to plug that. So that's good. So they could go to your website and hit the contact button for you there, or do you want to shout out your email address as well?
Yeah, I think it would be best to reach out to me on my Instagram page for right now.
Okay,
my website's not currently set up. So
I got you.
At No Type Botanica, or you could send me an email. It's just my name, Logan Keister @gmail.com.
Word. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for doing that. Sweet. Well, let's hear about the class.
Yeah. So this was a really big inspiration from our good mutual friend, Raishi Strauss. She told me that she was teaching a class on herbs to take with psilocybin to help facilitate a better psilocybin experience. And that was something I'd been working with for quite a while, but I'd never thought of the idea of actually making it into class. And I was just like, she was asking me for questions and ideas and just got me brainstorming. And I'm like, this is a really wonderful idea for a class. And she was sharing a lot of good information with me. And I was like, I could actually come up with my own kind of version for this class and really share it my own way. And it's like, I kind of look at it in different ways. I kind of categorize it. So for instance, like there's the aspect of how do I want to come into the experience? How should I feel? I think the ideal state is to be calm, clear, and focused. Mm-hmm. And so it's really finding those herbs that are going to help to bring one into a more meditative state. So we're looking at different nervines, whether like cerebral circulatory stimulants, calming nervine relaxants. Also things that are going to help us to assimilate the mushrooms better, whether that's through digestion. But also herbs that can also bring us deeper into the experience, that can make it even more potent and hallucinogenic.
Dude, I gotta say, sorry to interrupt. I feel like I'm tripping out because your background's funny because that sun is just like, it's making us sick. I'm like, I feel like I'm tripping out right now.
I know the screen looks all trippy as soon as I start talking about psychedelics. That's how it always goes.
That's funny. Sorry to interrupt. I don't know if you remember exactly where you were at. But
yeah.
Cool.
No, it's basically just kind of covering the whole gamut of different herbs that we can use to facilitate psilocybin experience whether it's through assimilating the mushrooms better, having easier digestion, coming into the experience feeling more calm and cool-headed, maybe grounding down after the end of an intense experience, or even adding kind of different hallucinatory effects. There have been quite a few formulas out there that I've experimented with and I've worked with. And so I share quite a few different ways that different herbs and different herbal actions interact with the psilocybin experience. And also I try to cover it in a way where it's for maybe first timers who are interested in going into really potent experience. They're trying to go for that more heroic dose and go really deep into the medicine, and they may be nervous for their first time. Realizing that there's some herbs that can actually help facilitate going into really strong experience. So that's where I'm kind of gearing it towards, is people who want to go for those stronger experience, but may feel a little nervous about certain physical or mental aspects going into it. So yeah, just really finding that setting and having herbs be that almost like extra tool you can use besides just intention, prayer, good living. Sometimes you just need a little extra herbal boost and just a little help in certain areas.
It's a great idea for a class. And, I just only could wish that I had access to a class like this when I first started experimenting with that stuff. But then again, I was probably too young and too stupid. And in the wrong environments, but that's really
that's
neat.
so funny because I'm right. I wrote an essay on it, and I addressed this to my 16-year-old self who did not know all this.
That's hilarious. Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. So I don't want to just make it sound like you're only teaching one class at that event. I know you're actually teaching 4. Which is really neat. We don't have to get into that. We have a whole video where we talk to you about all 4 of your classes there. So again, dear listener, if you do want to, is it a discounted ticket? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm getting them. So right now I'm doing it like 25%, around 25% off the current price. So it's $325 for a ticket, and the current price is $429. So it's a little over $100 off. So if you were really interested in going to the event, I got some few discounted tickets left. So it's going to be super awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I've heard so many great things about this gathering.
Yeah, I would say the URL, but I always fuck it up. So no big deal. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Okay, so we're going to transition from psychedelics over to mushrooms, which makes sense. And I honestly can't remember if I've ever asked you this question before. So we could just hear it again on the HerbRally podcast, the Herbalist Hour. So I made a matsutake extract once, a double extraction, and I did it, and I thought I was super clever, and just honestly I don't know why I did it, other than the fact that I knew it was an edible mushroom, and I thought it'd be really, and I was assuming that there's got to be some sort of medicinal properties in, say, the matsutake mushroom. So I thought it'd be fun to make a double extract. And then later on you told me you did a matsutake double extract, which I thought was really cool that I met someone else that did that. So I was just kind of curious if you could tell us, why were you inspired to make a matsutake extract, knowing that it's primarily used as like a edible mushroom?
This actually goes all the way back to my high school days with old Mushroom Bob, man.
Oh, cool.
He would, because, there's a lot of different ethnic demographics in the foraging community and stuff. And so there's a big Asian population that will forage out there. And so he had a lot of interaction selling to the different Asian buyers. And he said a lot of them, they like to take their finest matsutakes and put them in like a rice wine or like a vodka and just stick a couple of them in there. And they said like, oh, this is like good vitality, like that's cool mixture, taking a shot of this, like potent mushroom inside of this alcohol. And so for me, I was just like, years later, I was just thinking about, I'm like, hey, we know all this stuff about double extracts, maybe I'll just kind of take that more classic Asian folk model of working with medicine and take it to the next level by trying to really potentize it and really trying to strain it down and boil down the constituents and make a double extraction. And the more I got into it, so I started selling some of it, and a lot of people were reaching out to me because they wanted to use it for skincare products. And that got me really interested in the uses of it in skincare. So apparently it's really popular in Korean skincare, and they had a lot of research behind it. So it's really has a lot of potent antioxidants. So it's shown to help bring down rates of skin cancer. It's really just healthy, helps with skin elasticity and skin health. It helps, it does decrease melanin production a little bit. So it'll help to kind of whiten and brighten the skin a little bit. So a lot of cultures like geisha culture, where they really, in Japan, where they really like the pale complexion, they would use a lot of matsutake, but it seemed nicer than using more harsh things to lighten the skin, since it actually has like really nice antioxidants in it. And, really like what Christopher Hobbs really lays down is, all mushrooms are medicinal. They all have these potent beta glucans, which have been shown to help inhibit cancer, help to improve our immune system, to help get our immune system like activated, more ready to fight off pathogens and bring down inflammation. And this matsutake mushroom contains a lot of those. So it has this history of known to be stimulating to vitality, especially when you get the little teeny number 1 matsutakes. For those of you who don't know, we grade matsutakes. The really tiny ones that look very phallic, those are said to be that those ones fetch a really high dollar if you get a really tiny phallic looking one. Anything like a little bit bigger than that, it's a number 2 or a number 3. So you get graded on the matsutakes and how much they will sell for. So those special little number 1s were considered a really potent vitality mixture. So I like to grab those and turn them into alcohol extract so I can have a really concentrated essence of that potent medicine.
So just to plug your tincture line, are you still doing no-tie botanica tinctures and whatnot? Can people still buy from you?
Yes, they can. I honestly don't promote my tinctures too much because I have so much else on my plate, but I do sell my medicine. So yeah, if anyone's interested, I still have my Etsy site up there. And I'm always trying to come up with new formulas. Usually the best place to find me at gatherings because that's where I like to present my new stuff. But I still have all my classics up on Etsy.
Awesome. I'll link to that as well. So why don't you share a little bit about, say, another mushroom? Let's talk about the red-belted conk.
Ooh, red-belted conk. Now that's probably my favorite mushroom. And once again, that was the very first medicinal mushroom I ever had, thanks to our good friend Mushroom Bob. He would he said his folk use was it for, he's like, oh, out here we call this stuff logger tea because the loggers, after a hard day of working, their ankles and their shins are all inflamed and stuff. They make themselves a big cup of this at the end of the day, like drink it down, and it would just help to like relieve that inflammation and that pain and help them like feel relaxed. And so he would just gather one of those big conchs, just throw the whole giant mushroom inside of a pot and just boil the heck out of it, just really boil it to smithereens. And he said, like, all right, now what you got to do is drink, about like 5-10 cups of it, and you'll get this nice, lucid, like dreamy feel. And I'm like, he called it euphoria. He's like, it gives you euphoria. It's a euphoria medicine. And so I was, like I said, I was a teenager who was very interested in mind altering substances. So I sat there and I drank about 10 cups of tea, and just remember just sitting there and just kind of melting into the couch and just feeling this like really light, calm, dreamy sensation. I just felt very just like calm and just slightly detached and just very present. And that to me was very, got me very curious about that mushroom because it's one of the most common polypores you'll find. For those of you who don't know, you should look up a picture of Fomitopsis pinicola, this red-belted conch or red ring conch, because it grows, I think, in every continent besides like Antarctica. So it's one of those mushrooms where no matter where you're traveling, wherever you are in the world, you can still find this mushroom and it just feels like a familiar friend. I think some geneticists might disagree that they're not maybe potentially slightly subspecies difference and slight genetic, but to me, they're all Fomitopsis pinicola. We just see that big red ring on that conch. You know what that medicine is. You know what it's going to feel like. You know what it tastes like, that dark, bitter aroma. And the more I just spend time with it and the more I read about it, the more things I just learn. For instance, when I was in Washington, I was studying it, and I was reading about all these insect pheromones, like a lot of the smell, all these triterpenes that are quite that have some fragrance to them. They actually are insect pheromones. And so the whole idea is you create these insect pheromones and it attracts the insects to start mating underneath the mushroom as it's dropping its spores off. And then these insects, they get covered in spores and will go off. And so you'll have like bark beetles under there, and they'll go gnawing into other trees. And then they just spread the spores around that way. So I remember just being there, and I just spend like a lot of the springtime just sitting under those mushrooms, just watching multiple species of flies and beetles just like getting it on under those mushrooms. It was just like, it was like a little club under there, it's like a bunch of sexually charged insects just like meeting and greeting and just enjoying themselves. And another thing I learned about it too is it's one of the brown rot fungi, so it helps to degrade cellulose in the tree. So when the tree still has its lignin strong structure to help keep it up, but once the cellulose starts to degrade, it makes it so that we have species of insects that can start getting in there and eating in the wood. And then once the insects get in there, then that really starts attracting the red pileated woodpecker, which starts burrowing and making its holes in the tree. And a lot of people don't realize that those red pileated woodpeckers are one of the primary cavity excavators. And so they make holes for themselves, but then later on, multiple other species of birds and squirrels and other creatures will go and use those holes as their home. So I thought that was really cool, because you think like, oh, you got this red banded mushroom, and then it's like, associated bird is this red banded, the red pileated woodpecker that goes and like after the mushroom loosens up the wood, then the woodpecker comes in and makes the holes and creates this whole new habitat ecosystem. So yeah, the more you spend time with that mushroom, just the more you learn about it. And yeah, I can't speak higher of it.
That's really trippy. I never really thought about that. That's neat. And it's also good to know that I might be able to find Fomitopsis pinicola in Wisconsin. Because I've definitely made the tea from it. I, for whatever reason, always kind of thought that was a Oregon specialty, but I guess not. Why don't we do one more mushrooms, and then I definitely want to get to like I do want to talk about your slimy ode to slimy stuff.
All right. Ooh. Well, wait. If we're going to talk about slimy stuff, should we talk about a slimy mushroom?
Yes, totally. Yeah, that'll be a nice transition. What mushroom's that?
Okay, so this is probably one of my favorite ones, and I think a lot of y'all listening out there, you may have seen this one. So its Latin name is Tremella mesenterica. Although there are other species of Tremella, it's actually one of the most cultivated species of medicinal mushroom in China is a species of Tremella. Mm. But many of us, we know the Tremella mesenterica. You ever see a log and there's like this orange gooey stuff on it? So it's what we call witch's butter. So if you just see a random orange goo that looks like some ghost or specter left some ectoplasm behind and just laying up on some log in the forest, that's our Tremella mesenterica. And for me, I really love this mushroom because I am someone, I tend to run a little hot and a little dry. And so when you find this mushroom, it's just this gooey kind of mucousy mucilage. And if you're having something like a hot skin rash, maybe I got poison oak, or sunburn is like one of the best things. If I have hot sunburned skin, I'll just pull some of that goo right off the log and just like start rubbing it right into my face and just letting that oozy slime just sink in there, because it's cooling, anti-inflammatory, has mucilaginous polysaccharides, which help to moisten and lubricate the skin, has antioxidants, which help to protect the skin from sun damage and damage from free radicals. So it's this amazing, just nice moistening remedy that also has a lot of beta glucans and fibers that will help to feed our gut flora. So it's a wonderful digestive tonic, especially if we have hot acidic digestion. It helps to like be cooling and really good for any kind of hot digestive issues, even things like someone starting to develop ulcers. I would even consider using Tremella on a regular basis to help lubricate the colon and help to bring down inflammation. And it's slightly antimicrobial as well. So yeah, not enough people in United States. We kind of are a little afraid of our slime. So it's like, and so even in mushrooms are just starting to become popular, but for a long time they haven't been popular. So slimy mushrooms are just kind of on that fringe of like, I want them to be more popular. I want them to reach up there with the lion's mane and the reishi, like, because they're at that level in China right now, in Asian countries. Really? They love their slimy mushrooms. So I want the United States to get on board.
Well, you'd be proud of Amanda and I, because we just had some, I don't even know if you mentioned the common name. Would that be considered witch's butter?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm sure some of y'all have heard about witch's butter, but definitely don't be going out and eating random stuff in the woods if you don't for sure know what it is. But I personally do like the slimy texture. I just like all sorts of flavors, whether it's bitter or sour or, I just like it all. So I was hoping maybe you could go into some borderline. Do you have any sort of rant on, say, like the slimy texture or flavor in general, or was that kind of what you were getting at right there?
Oh, I can always talk about slime, man. I just love that slime, that mucilage. I think us as herbalists, I think a lot of us are trained to start liking mucilage and to like slime. But, it's like you look at a lot of cultures and they always have their mucilaginous plants. We were lucky. We got okra from Africa. In Africa, they use a lot of okra in their cooking.
Yeah.
And, there's also lots of slimy seaweeds that are eaten and various species of slimy mushrooms that are eaten in a lot of the Asian countries. And it's just kind of something that's really lacking in our diet. We get it from oatmeal. Oatmeal seems to be one of our good ones. And, chia seeds are starting to become popular, which I think is really cool because anytime we get more mucilages to be popular, that I just see that as a good thing because really a lot of people are just running really hot and dry. And it's always one of those things, the way I like to describe mucilage to people, it's like, you ever get like your throat gets dry and you get this cough, and someone's like, here, try some water. And you drink the water and you're like, and it's like, it's not because you're not lacking water. You got plenty of saliva down there. It's lacking mucus. It's that mucus that's really needs to lubricate and coat those tissues. And then, you have the dry throat to start with, but that's a sign that like all your mucous membranes, our mucous membranes coat all of our internal organs. So they're like going through our entire body. And I always used to like to use the metaphor, like imagining like our sinuses are a really easy passageway because that's usually feel a lot of our mucus in our nostrils and our sinuses. And so I like to imagine like you got really hot, dry sinuses. It's just dry, red and inflamed. And then one day someone just like who has a cold, they sneeze right in your face and it just blasts right inside of your nose. And these little viral particles and bacteria get right in there. Well, they just land in this like hot, red, dry area. And they're just kind of like, oh, well, this isn't very well protected. And they're like, yeah, this area is all irritated. This is not going to be hard to, it's like, it's kind of like terrain theory. The terrain just is like, it's kind of it's not very good. It's not good terrain. It's not very healthy. It's too dry. Like it's a lot easier for pathogens to start taking over. But if you have that thick, like a nice thin layer of mucus coating those passages, mucus has a lot of immune cells in it. So the second those pathogens go into your nostrils, that person sneezes right in your face. It goes right in your nostrils. If that mucus is there, those pathogens are going to land in that mucus and they're going to like have trouble moving around. And then immune cells can quickly surround it and capture the pathogens and neutralize them. So when we're lacking that good mucilage, it just can really have a dramatic effect on our ability to fight pathogens, on our ability to digest foods, on our ability to have just good saliva and mucus. And yeah, it's just needs more appreciation. I don't know what else to say, man.
Yeah, no, I love it. And, I try to rotate the different, say, nourishing herbal infusions that I consume. And, I obviously I consume a lot of oat straw, nettle. I actually got some nettle going right now, but which is, I know, drying. But yeah, I will throw in, say, like a cold infusion of marshmallow root infusion on occasion as well, just to get that, tonic mucilage into my diet. So thank you for sharing your love of mucus. And I really appreciate that sneezing picture in my head. Yeah.
Oh, and one more thing. It's a really good prebiotic. So that mucus, it not only feeds us, but it's really feeding a lot of our gut flora. So people who are like thinking about taking probiotics all the time, if you're taking probiotics, make sure you're giving them a little food too. It's like buying fish. You just dump a bunch of goldfish into your stomach, but you don't give them any of the fish food. That's what that mucilage. It's fish food.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up that point. That part I kind of was aware of, but your analogy about the arid desert and everything, I really thought that was interesting. I've never heard it put that way before. Well, let's get kind of more into the let's get to know Logan part of the show a little bit more. So I'm gonna pull a random card from this Let's Get Deep Friends Edition, and it'll just be a random question, and we'll see what it is, and we'll just kind of freestyle it. Oh, this is kind of funny. You've kind of alluded to this already, but what types of jobs have you had?
Oh man, I've always kind of been in the herbal industry in different ways. I guess starting out as a commercial forager, then I worked as an herb cleaner. I've done some roofing and tiling, different carpentry stuff. Bob also held us like building furniture, so I've done a lot of woodworking. Did some work in a dispensary, so I got to see the whole cannabis mumbo jumbo.
That's the herbal industry.
I didn't stay in that very long. And working at Bastyr University, a lot of time when I was in college, a lot of my work was just working at different properties. So I got to work at lots of different properties, helping care. So I've done a lot of professional pruning and tree care. I got trained by some really amazing landscape designers and at Oregon State University. So I've done a lot of design work and helping to maintain and create really beautiful spaces, and especially caring for trees.
Yeah.
And, nowadays, I'm doing herbal clients. I'll work one-on-one with people who are trying to address different health issues, always leading classes, doing different plant walks, selling herbal medicine. I like doing custom formulations for people, especially, and selling lots of plants and lots of seeds. And, I'm just always I have like my toes in every little bit in the herbal industry. I've kind of walked quite a few different levels around this herbal path.
Totally. Well, we'll save this next question kind of for the very end, or the question I have based on what you just said there. But part of the game is I have to answer too. Answer the random questions. So I've only had a few jobs. I worked at Fred Meyer as a cart pusher when I was 16. Well, actually, before that, I cleaned dorms when I was 14 for the U of O, the University of Oregon. I spent my whole summer cleaning the disgusting dorms at the U of O, getting paid minimum wage. But yeah, then I got a job at Fred Meyer, worked there for a few years. And then I worked at Oregon River Sports, which is a place that we used to rent like canoes and stuff like that. And then that was just for a summer. And then after that, I worked at the hospital. I worked in the hospital kitchen and the dietitian office for 7 years, and then I worked at Mountain Rose for 11. Then I worked at Mountain Rose for 11 years, and then now I'm here at HerbRally. So that's kind of my path. That was when I worked at the hospital, I thought I was going to be a dietitian. So I was going to school for that, and then I fell in love with herbalism by route of nutrition and whatnot. So seemed like a natural progression, but So another kind of a random fun question for you is, what hobbies do you have outside of the world of plants and herbalism?
Oh, man. I got a lot of hobbies, man. I'm not going to lie.
Cool.
I'm really, I think it's like I'm kind of interested in all aspects of, not just the plants and not just the mushrooms, but I'm also in love with like the stars. I spend lots of time stargazing and watching planets. And I really like astrology because it gives me very practical relationship I can have with the planets and the moons and the cycles, and just watching the cycles of the planets and just trying to just feel like, I have this like deeper connection to the cosmos. I'm also really love fishing. I like been out fishing a lot lately. Just love like the summertime. I just got to be out on the water and out on the river. And it's so nice because, my knowledge of plants, I can always be out there foraging for plants and watching the fish. And, I'm a big reader too, and I've been getting into archery lately too. That's been one of my big things. I really love archery and really watching birds. And one other thing I've been getting into is bird calling. I've been calling lots of birds. I've been working on my natural voice calls. I did my natural turkey voice the other day. I called in a gobbler, just using my own voice. That was pretty exciting. I've been talking to crows. I'm a little bird obsessed lately. That's been kind of a big thing for me. Just the wildlife and yeah. I got a lot of hobbies, man. I play music too.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was going to ask you earlier if the Fomitopsis was the inspiration to fly, spore fly.
Oh man, that's a lot of mushrooms, a lot of spores been flying from my basket for a number of years.
I love it. We weren't able to get to a lot of the questions that I had, and I really do want to have you back for another round because I do want to hear about your passion for medical astrology. I think that's really fascinating. It's definitely not something I'm even remotely familiar with. So, we'll have to have you back, and we can listen to you kind of wax poetic about all that.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Well, I guess usually I ask, what's your big why, but I feel like we've done that with you before. So I'm really kind of curious, what's next for Logan? Like what do What are some goals you have? Like, where do you see yourself, moving forward? Any particular projects you're excited about? What's next for Logan?
Oh man, I'm a strong believer in fate, so I always have like big aspirations and stuff for me. I think you and I are really similar. Like
Totally.
you tell me where we get like, you just get like a vision in your head. Like I just, there's this thing and that just came up in my head and I just have to do it, and sometimes it's like, so I have some of those things that go back years and I'm like, I'm working towards them, and others that just come up out of the blue, and just really just having that faith and just having that trust. And, when things don't always work out the way I want them to, just realizing that there's a certain perfection there. But, really, I just keep doing what I'm doing, but just like kind of expanding on it. I just want to keep teaching more and more, just be how I can reach more people. And, one day I'd love to have it where I could actually have students come in and be with me for a longer period of time, because as a teacher in this point, you get people coming in, they teach a class. It's been nice. I've been teaching herb farm interns, so I get to go back and do 3-hour lectures with them. So I get like 9 full hours with them, and it's been really nice because I can actually have consecutive things that build on each other. So I would really love to get to that point where I can really work with people for a long time and just really build up a whole practice and a whole way of thinking that I just can't cover in just one single lecture.
Love it. Well, I'm excited to see where your journey takes you. I feel like you're still very early on and you've already done so much. So I'm always very impressed with your teaching ability, and you just have a way of explaining certain herbal concepts that are just very easy to digest. So yeah, I'm just happy to know you, and I'm stoked to see what's in store for you.
Oh man, appreciate that, man. Yeah, a lot of appreciation for you too. What you do at HerbRally, you've just been always huge supporter of me and my work, and I'm always telling people about the amazing stuff you're doing. I'm always promoting you as well. So it's just like, really happy that we have this long-standing relationship together, and just always great just to get to talk with you and connect with you. It just feels very comfortable and familiar. I wasn't going on much sleep today, but I'm like, hey, I'm talking to Mason, like, oh, it'll be fine. It'll be great.
Yeah, my only regret. Well, thank you, by the way, Logan. That means a lot to me. And I'm actually. I guess I want to say my only regret is we couldn't do this in person, which is kind of ridiculous because I feel like I've spent so much of my life in Oregon. But hey, Zoom is a nice alternative, and I'm sure I'll be back in Southern Oregon sooner than later. So with that, thanks, Logan, for joining me, and thank you to you, dear listener, for listening in. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Herbalist Hour. Take care.
All right, take care.
And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the HerbRally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at HerbRally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from HerbRally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.